History may be repeating itself. Donald Trump's claims that the United States faced an imminent threat from Iran's long-range missiles and that Tehran was weeks away from developing a nuclear bomb echo the arguments used to justify another war, one that was later proved to be based on entirely false premises. The US invasion of Iraq in 2003 was launched on claims that Saddam Hussein possessed weapons of mass destruction. Those claims were completely discredited. At the time, the most authoritative voice challenging them was the head of the UN's nuclear watchdog, who reported there was no evidence or plausible indication that Iraq had revived its nuclear weapons program. That man is with me today, Dr. محمد البرادعي, an internationally renowned lawyer, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and the former Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, played a central role in challenging the case for war in Iraq. He served 3 terms, leading the IAEA, helping to shape global nuclear diplomacy, and later became a key figure in Egypt's 2011 revolution, standing alongside protesters in Tahrir Square. Dr. El-Baradei went on to found the Constitution Party and briefly served as vice president following the removal of Mohamed Morsi before resigning in protest after the Rabah Square massacre. He has since returned to Vienna, where he continues to speak out on international security, nuclear proliferation, and the risks of a regional war. Dr. El-Baradei, many Iranians and people outside Iran perceive that the IAEA is losing its neutrality, noting it failed to explicitly condemn the first attacks on their uranium facilities in June, while simultaneously releasing reports on Iranian non-compliance. Do you share this view that the IAEA is losing its authority? And if you were still Director General, how would you have handled this crisis?
David, first let me welcome you here in Vienna. It's a pleasure to have you here. I don't agree. I think the IAEA is currently used as a scapegoat. The IAEA is a technical organization, of course, advising in a political context, a very sensitive security context. What the IAEA has said, and this is, I need to repeat, there is no structured nuclear weapon program in Iraq. Forget all the other details.
In Iran?
In Iran, sorry. And that was the crux of the matter. They have serious issues of clarification, which we have been having with Iran for many years. Lots of them has been clarified in 2015, came not clarified and closed, in fact. Then we have the JCPOA, which, in my view, was the way forward. So I have seen that during my time at the IAEA. To be an objective person in a subjective environment is very difficult, and everybody wants to read things the way they want to read it. But the IAEA have said and continue to say, I think that I go by the current Director General Grossi, that there is no structure, there is no systematic nuclear weapon program. There are some issues which Iran need to be transparent, more transparent. They need to clarify it, but that's about it. So the idea that the IAEA is to be losing its impartiality, and frankly, if anybody were to condemn, and I strongly condemn what happened in illegal armed attack, it's a Security Council. It is not the IAEA, and the Security Council is completely paralyzed, completely irrelevant right now. So get the IAEA out of the way. The IAEA should continue to do what it is good at to do, is systematically inspect activities and make sure that everything is for peaceful purpose.
You famously took the WMD card away from the Bush administration in 2003. What are the similarities and the differences between how you dealt with Bush on Iraq and how Trump is dealing and Israel is dealing with Iran now? Are there any justifications for this war? And is Iran actually in breach of its core agreements?
Unfortunately, David, I see a lot of similarities. We have gone, Hans Blix and I, through a very difficult time when we saw a complete deception. We were on the ground. We didn't see any nuclear or chemical or biological weapon program at that time in Iraq, and yet the Bush administration continued to give this flashy, as you remember, flashy briefing at the Security Council that here is some nuclear, here is some biological, and they went to a war, destroyed a country. Hundreds of thousands of people died, innocent civilians, because of lack of medicine, because of lack of food, and then later on they said, "Oops, there was nothing," and I see a lot of similarity here. When I hear Mr. Trump yesterday saying that Iran right now is 2 weeks away from a nuclear weapon, I don't know what to, I got depressed, frankly, because I know the meaning of that. The meaning of that innocent civilian will die. And that's exactly what happened in Iraq. Where is the beef, as they say? They keep saying it's 2 weeks. And when they say about this war, what's the objective of this war? We heard like 4 or 5 reasons for this war. It's a regime change, which is again illegal because it's not your business to get from outside. It's a human rights issue. Yes, there is a major human rights issue in Iran, but it is not for you to fix it. It's for the Iranian to fix it. It's a missile, and then this missile program, but then the missile program is not illegal. And they themselves saying now it's a regional issue, which is correct. So you don't really know why are they going there. And right now, as you can see, it's becoming even more ridiculous. I mean, their most close allies told them, "You are on your own. You broke it, you fix it." All right, we are here, but how we are going to end this? And as we were talking about, I mean, the system is falling apart. I mean, when now extrajudicial killing is becoming normal, and you get a president or a prime minister saying, "I want to tell you that we killed Mr. So-and-so, a politician or a nuclear scientist," and people don't react. Well, we have no humanitarian law in place. We have no international law in place, and that's not in Iran. I mean, we can talk later on about what's happening in Ukraine, in Palestine, of course, where I've been following closely. But no, I've said this war is if it is based on nuclear, it's bogus. It's bogus. It's exactly the same like in Iraq. Unless you show the agency concrete evidence, but you are judging intention. Well, all what you see is they might like to have nuclear weapon, but I can tell you, I don't like you. Basically, I mean, war is the worst thing one can reach, or can launch, and after every other option has been exhausted, and we know war is evil. I have a lot of respect for Pope Leo, who keeps saying that every single day. He's the best politician right now. He's telling them, "You are not going to achieve anything from this war. War is just horror," and we don't seem to learn. I mean, so to cut it short, this war is illegal, is horrible, will not achieve anything. It will even, in my view, make a place like Iran more hawkish, and people, there is a difference between don't like a regime and feel for your home country. When the Iranian liberal and conservative and everybody else feel that they're being bombed, that their cousins have died, that their neighbor have been maimed, they all get together. And when they see somebody like Larijani, which I know very well and I work with him for years, he is clearly, different. We hail from different perspective, but he is a politician and he's a pragmatist. People don't even know. He has 4 books on the philosophy of Immanuel Kant. I mean, he's a philosopher also. Ideologue, yes, but this is the kind of people you sit together around the table and say, what is your grievances, what is our grievances, and let us fix it. People forget that why Iran is coming to where it is right now. Didn't forget that 1953, when the CIA and MI6, got rid of Mossadegh, through a program called Ajax and a program called Boot. Got rid of the first nationally elected government. Then they had back the Shah, who was a horrible dictator. Our kind of dictator, as American would say, but he was a dictator. I mean, I remember I was there, and the SAVAK and the horrible intelligence there. Then, of course, the reaction was to get this theological regime, And what happened after that? 8 years of war, financed by the West and the Arabs and everybody and his brother, against Iran, because they don't like the new regime. I still remember Halabja, the chemical weapon. The Iranians still remember 100,000 people died in this war. So when you...
And the precursors to the gas he used were provided by the Germans.
Yeah, absolutely. And
no one in Iran has forgotten this.
Sorry?
No one in Iran has forgotten this.
No, they haven't forgotten it. And why Iran started to look into nuclear, it was after this war. I mean, we need to understand people. I always say, whether you're a democracy or a theocracy, you have a sense of security or insecurity. North Korea have its own security and insecurity. Iran has it. UK has it. And Iran started to look into nuclear, as we know from our work at the agency, after this 8 years war, and said, well, we need to protect ourselves. And however, again, I should say that in my judgment, at least, and what I heard from them from day one, since 2002, when we started to discover this program, they said, we do not want to be a nuclear weapon, but we want to show that we can be a nuclear weapon. We can do it, basically, because they thought this is the only way the West, the American in particular, would respect them as a regional power. And I heard that from Larijani, I heard that from everybody. And
can I ask you, what was your experience of Larijani? What was he like to negotiate with?
I think he was a good man to negotiate with. He's a hardliner, but he is a pragmatist. He understood what he can get, what we have to do, and I think it was good. Difficult, of course, because we have a way to go, and of course they wanted to go around the bush sometimes. But he was one of the good people. He understood profoundly the issues. He understood profoundly what he wanted to get, and I think we lost him. I think we lost him in the sense of having an interlocutor valable, as they say. I mean, Mr. Trump, again, I come back to him. Last week he said, these are a bunch of lunatics in Iran. And of course, how could you negotiate? Yesterday, he said they are people with a very high IQ and they are philosophers. I mean, because this is the word I said in an interview last week. I said you can agree or disagree with them, but they are not, you cannot brush them as lunatics. They have their dogma, as many people have dogmas, from communism to liberalism to whatever. But these are people have their own mindset, have their own way of looking at things, and the way to do things you can have to sit and talk to them. It is not, I mean, we are at a point right now, when we can't afford to buy an iota that not to cooperate with each other. Not because we like each other, aside from the theological and humanitarian aspect. The world is so disconnected. How are we going to deal with the nuclear arms race? How are we going to deal with the climate change, which is horrible? How are we going to deal with the AI, where every day I hear something make you shivers? So we are going completely completely on the right direction, completely in the wrong direction in all this stuff.
It's spiraling out of control.
Absolutely, yes. It's spiraling out of control, and you're losing all the institutions that has been developed since 1945, to save the succeeding generation, as they say, from the scourge of war.
I'll ask you a bit more about that a bit later on. Just to stay with the nuclear issue, you've said that the JCPOA, which you helped negotiate, was working perfectly before Trump walked away. Yeah. How do you evaluate the EU's recent decision to implement the snapback sanctions clause? As an expert, does the fault for this escalation also lie with the Western side, or just purely with the Iranian side?
I think the snapback is in my view, is completely wrong. It's again a sign, to me, a sign of arrogance. We had an agreement, the Barack Obama's agreement, and these were people, I know all of them, Barack Obama, Ernest Moniz, who was the Secretary of Energy. I mean, their people are not, very wide-eyed, understood technically, politically. And the idea at that time was, okay, Iran feel sense of insecurity. We also are afraid that Iran might go into that direction. The only way to do it is to build trust. And build trust, give ourselves 10, 15 years, make sure that Iran doesn't have any wherewithal to develop nuclear weapon for 15 years. And within this 15 years, we would have developed that trust, so we don't even need possibly this kind of thing. But to go again through, I mean, when you snap back, how do you apply snapback? I mean, it was Trump who withdrew from the JCPOA. It was Iran who was, even the American and everybody saying they would absolutely implementing it to the tilt. And if they wanted nuclear weapons, why would they have accepted the 2015, the nuclear deal? I mean, they gave up everything, and they gave the IAEA the authority to be there 24/7, and they shipped all the nuclear material they have. So it was clearly they were looking, okay, we do not want it, provided that we will have commerce, sanction will be lifted, and will be part of the international community.
But the sanctions were never lifted.
Yeah,
they were never lifted.
No.
Even under Biden, they didn't.
Exactly. And then they came back, and Mr. Biden again came back and said, well, we want to come back, but they never came back into the nuclear deal, and the sanction continued. So when you have done all that, Iran, and I'm not, put yourself into the shoes of the Iranian, and I'm not defending them, but put yourself into their shoes. I mean, we have done everything. We took our clothes off, and in return, or in expectation that we'll get become normalized member of the international community, and that didn't happen. The EU wanted us to implement an agreement which has been violated by the Americans. I mean, I don't want to get into the legal, I'm a lawyer, and I want to, if you have an agreement and one party doesn't implement it, Article 60 of the law of treaty tell you, well, you are not under obligation to implement that, or you can suspend that. And anyway, but aside from the legality, I mean, the approach is, and this is where I see it everywhere right now, should I say it's colonization 2.0? I mean, we finished with the colonial period, but we are getting into another more sophisticated type of colonial, that you have the North and you have the global South. And standards are completely different, in so far as international law, in so far as economic development, in so far as everything. And I always used to say also, we might be poor in the South, but we're not stupid. We see that. We see what is happening. And then don't expect that you say, oh, they are becoming terrorists, they're becoming extremists, they're becoming theologically hardliners, whatever. But don't you ask yourself, I mean, we hear that all the time. We hear that about Hamas, we hear that about Hezbollah.
We now hear it about Islam as well.
Yeah, about Islam. I mean, I hear it now. There's no shame any longer now. You hear members of Congress saying Islam is incompatible with the Western value. Thank you and goodbye. This is at least 10 years ago. They were, even if they believed that, they could not say it. But now, it's in your face. It's as Huntington talked about, clash of civilization. Well, it's not really. It's an artificial clash of civilization because we have these extremists who are trying to, make things impossible to live together. I mean, I'm a Muslim, and a lot of these guys here probably are Muslim or Copt or Jewish. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. We are just human beings. We have to live together. Whether I go to the mosque on Friday or to the synagogue on Saturday, what does it different does it matter? We have the same values. We have the same fear, same aspiration. We want the same for our kids. But that's not happening right now. That we have an attack. In fact, a vicious attack also. Not only on the international system, but also even on the national system. Nobody talks any longer about human rights or democracy. Have you heard anybody in the last couple of years? I mean, these people who really were telling us every other day, and I support them, of course, I support them. I'm a firm believer in human rights and democracy. And all my life, and I will continue until I die. But they don't talk about it any longer. Once we started with Gaza, then it's not. Then it's a different values for you, the natives. I call them the natives. We are the natives, so they apply something else for us. That is, where do we go with this? And people are in shock right now. I think, I blame the Europeans a lot, frankly, because the Europeans who are the closest to the American, and when you see the most powerful country, I wouldn't say, almost getting rogue, that, doesn't really care about international law, doesn't care about values, accepted global values. When the president say, I'm going to attack or acquire 1, 2, 3, 4 countries and maybe more, where is the European? It's only now that they woke up, in a very sort of hitting around the bush, even not directly, and they are the one. This is the transatlantic. This was supposed to be the major power that is guiding the rest of the world. They were the colonialist before, and now they were supposed to help us with the transition from colonial period into democracy and human rights, and they're failing, and they're failing miserably. When I read every day, what is coming from the EU, what's coming from yesterday. I mean, they made a statement about Iran. There is not a single word about the war, but it's Iran who is attacking its neighbors. It's Iran which is horrible. It's Iran which is killing its people. Fine, but you haven't seen the war, and how do you think people not only in Iran but in the rest of in the South feel about that?
Why is Israel consistently exempted from the nuclear conversation? It hasn't signed the NPT, yet it's bombing a country which has. Is it fair to put all the pressure on the signatory while ignoring the non-signatory?
It's again, David, it's another issue of a system that cannot be sustainable. That's what we call arms control. I mean, the idea in 1970, when we have this non-proliferation treaty, that we have 5 countries who have nuclear weapons. They committed themselves to go for nuclear disarmament. In return, everybody else came into the treaty committing not to have nuclear weapons, except India, Pakistan, Israel. What we see after 50 some years now, that the 5 weapon states is violating their basic obligation. Not only that they are not moving into nuclear disarmament, they are refining their nuclear weapon arsenals. All the 9, except also including, of course, the 4 who are outside of the NPT, everyone is refining, using the AI, doing hypersonic delivery system. And again, as I was saying, in the past, they used to be a bit shy to say that this is, now they are saying nuclear deterrence is our way of salvation, and we have to keep it. Well, can't you ask yourself why? How about the other countries? And we've seen recently in the last couple of years, in Ukraine gave its nuclear weapon program, or arsenals in 1994, the famous Budapest memorandum. Ukraine was pummeled, and Russia also told everybody that you can't touch us because we have nuclear weapons, and it was not touched. That is true. During Iraq time, I heard that a lot. I heard that Iraq was bombed because they don't have nuclear weapons. North Korea was not bombed because they have nuclear weapons. So what is the message we are getting there? And I come back to your question about Israel. There is a country which at least everybody say they have like 90 nuclear weapon states, 90 nuclear weapons, and going after a country which is Iran, which they say maybe for the last 20 years they've been saying Iran is 5 minutes away from the nuclear weapon. But how is a regional security system could work on that basis? You have one country in the region have nuclear weapons, 90 of them, and telling everybody else you cannot even touch even the nuclear science. It's not sustainable. As I said, it might work 5 years, 10 years, but it is not sustainable. At my age and at my experience, I take the long view. This is not sustainable. Israel might bomb Gaza today, might bomb Iran today, but these countries are not going to sit on their hands. The younger generation will say, why are we being treated as second, third class? It's inequality, in every aspect of our life, which really not only bothers me, which only makes me very depressed. It's inequality in everything, from the financial system, from the arms control, from anybody. There is some rules for us, and there are some rules for you, and they're not the same.
If the current operation, the military operation, fails to free the Straits of Hormuz and everything, are you frightened that Israel could use a nuclear bomb in this war?
That other countries?
No, Israel could actually use a nuclear bomb.
I don't think so. I hope not. I think any country would be crazy to use.
Putin, or the people around Putin threatened
they're using the tactical nuclear weapons
over Crimea.
Yeah, it's. Should I 100% exclude it? No. Should I pray every night that it shouldn't happen? Yes, but as long, as they say, use it. If you don't use it, you lose it. And if you are in a situation where you feel, you're back to the wall, if you feel that you are losing, if you have a crazy leader, like what we have in Israel right now, I don't exclude it. No, I don't exclude. That's why, I spent a lot of my life saying we don't need one single nuclear weapon in the world. We can at least kill each other, but not destroy the entire globe.
Looking back on your experience with the Bush administration during the war in Iraq and comparing that now to the actions of Trump, is Trump a new phenomenon? Is it sort of revolutionary in breaking all the rules to impose American hegemony? Or is he just a more extreme version of Bush? Is the core the same and the difference superficial? Or is Trump really doing something that Bush didn't do?
I think they're different. I mean, again, maybe this is a little bit artificial, or superficial based on my experience. During the Bush time, during Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice and others, they were trying hard to say that what we are doing is in accordance with international law. They were not, they went to the Security Council, I remember after Colin Powell, went to Security Council, and I realized that he himself was rused. He told me, I spent a week at Langley, the CIA, and if I had to write a speech based on all what they have told me, I would have spent a week talking. But then he realized that he was himself rused by that. And we still maintained the contact afterward, and he said, unfortunately we didn't have a chance, let's have a lunch or dinner when you come to Washington to reminisce. I mean, some of them at least, and some of them, felt that they were actually rused by intelligence, by the new cons, whatever, but they always wanted to make sure that or pretend at least, or link what they're doing with international law. We don't see that here now. I mean, or not only international law, multilateral institutions. I mean, they tried hard to get, during the Iraq time, a decision from the Security Council, but thanks to France and Germany at that time, they did it. And I should say a little bit us, Hans Blix and I, who said we don't see it. But this one, he said that all he talks about the UN when he talks about it is the escalator that didn't work, or the teleprompter, and he doesn't really, and I'm not just talking about him, but the whole administration doesn't really care about the UN. I mean, the UN is, when you see the resolution decision and now at the UN, it's usually 180 countries in favor and 10 against, and that's the US and all the little islands in the Pacific. That you can check that. But how did that work? And again, when he went to this war in Iran, where at least again during Bush time, this was the new cons was the result of 9/11. They thought that there is a huge conspiracy by the Muslim countries, by the Arab countries, and we have to teach one of them a lesson. I mean, that was the whole motivation of the new cons. Let us bomb Iraq because to told them you cannot do that to us as Arab or Muslim. This kind of threat, where is it now? There is, the US is becoming more and more powerful, more and more. The only game in town, and China is the other, but China is taking its time to building its economy, building its security. So there's no threat. Where is the threat when this war started? When is the threat? Iran was ready even this time, to give up something similar to the nuclear deal in 2015, give up all their nuclear, highly enriched uranium, low enriched uranium, no, they don't give any accumulation. They gave everything, and then they were bombed in the middle of the negotiation. Then the second time they were doing the same, they were bombed again in the middle of negotiation. So this is not about threat, about self-defense, about any of this junk. There is none. I don't know why, and I read now everywhere that nobody knows what Trump has in mind. What he keeps shifting. They thought apparently, well, and again, I read, and I can't really say that, but everybody's saying this is not really his war, this is Israel's war, this is Netanyahu's war, who want to destroy Iran, because whether you like Iran or you left or you hate Iran, Iran is the only power right now that's standing to Israel. In fact, and he wants a completely flat Middle East, particularly with the extreme right government he has in because I don't, and that's because now you don't know why you enter into the war. You don't know how you are going to get out of the war. I mean, everybody is trying to tell Trump, declare victory and get out. But declare victory and get out after you killed like 2,000 people, after you destroyed a country, after even all the Gulf countries who went out with the road to establish a lot of new American bases. I mean, they are getting now pummeled in this regional war. It is a regional war, and it could even expand. I mean, look at the oil now, look at the food. I mean, I read yesterday that there is 45 million people who are going to go into hunger because of the Hormuz Strait, because there is no food, the chain of supply doesn't come.
And also fertilizer. They're not going to get the fertilizer from.
Yeah, and so does anybody care about these people? No, because where are these people? They are in Yemen or Libya, or so 45 million, that's okay.
Let's talk a bit about the collapse of the global order. How do you evaluate Trump's actions in dealing with international institutions and harming the international order? Is the damage now out of control?
I think the damage is out of control until there is a change in the US, in my view, and hopefully somebody with a different perception or different understanding that you cannot live alone. That what I see right now, personally, that more and more the US is getting isolated. I mean, this whole thing about the Iraq, when all the Europeans are telling you thank you, people are trying, which is the natural thing of life, that people will turn around you, will just, but when I see the administration going out of WHO, which is supposedly working on, preventing another COVID or developing a good vaccine, when they walk out of the climate change, the Paris Conference, they are fighting science. I mean, it's not just a security count; they are fighting science, and it has to be. I mean, we just have to pray that the next 2-3 years nothing major will happen, but yeah, I mean, to think that you at this stage that you are on your own, can do everything without any constraint, without any rules, I mean, I start to question something more serious, because if nobody 10 years old will tell you that this cannot happen. This cannot happen. We need each other in every single way right now, but that's what's happening. I mean, when you see Gaza, when you see Iran, when you see Ukraine, where is the Security Council? It's not there.
In fact, you recently tweeted about the West taking a year to remember international law in Gaza, but only a week for Iran when the oil was threatened. Has the West permanently lost its moral authority in the eyes of the global South?
I would say, unfortunately, and I don't want to say black and white. There's some countries like Spain, like Ireland, and other who really stood up, for. But yes, absolutely. I mean, I have been, I've been educated, trained in the US, in the West. I've lived more than half of my life in the West. I always believe that this is not perfect, but this is the way to go. But then I see, that this whole thing is crumbled immediately because they want to say, well, we have, particularly in the Germany, we have a huge guilt because of what happened, and therefore we cannot even tell anything that Israel is doing wrong. So they continue. I see yesterday I was reading an article about a professor of international law in Germany basically saying right of self-defense could extend to this and that. And why are you doing this? You are a professor of international law. I mean, and in 10 years from now, you will need it. You know, why are you doing? But yes, I mean, if I see all the stuff coming out of the EU, when I see van der Leyen saying, you know, a few months ago, Israel is the oasis of democracy, and that was in the middle of a war where the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court saying there is genocide. How? Yes, they are losing it, and they are losing it. I mean, if you ask anybody in the South right now, and I'm, you know, pretty much sure of that, this model they were always looking for, you know, to be, you know, to in terms of, you know, free economic system, you know, diversity, multinet. This is all basically saying you, the Western transatlantic, or the European in particular, have fooled us, and now we have to fend off for ourselves in terms of security, in terms of economic development, in terms of values. Is that good for the world? Absolutely zero. Absolutely zero. You know.
I'd like to talk to you now about Palestine, and you also posted a tweet about Pax Israelita and the destruction of Gaza. How do you see the future of the Palestinian cause? Are you totally pessimistic, or do you see a genuine change in global public opinion that could force at least a two-state solution?
One thing, again, to be fair to the West, as we call it, people have been quite conscientious about what is happening around them. I mean, in particular in Gaza, when we see the demonstration everywhere in the world, I mean, we're even more than what we saw in the Arab world. The Arab world were not allowed to go out, but that's a different story. But the people in the West were absolutely, you know, understanding what is right and what is wrong.
The people did, but the government...
The people. No, only local people. Yeah. The government was completely at odds with their people, you know. But people where I have hope in the Western people. I don't have any hope in the Western politician right now. But they have their attitude vis-a-vis Gaza. Sure, you know, Hamas did kill civilian, which was, and that's why also Karim Khan, you know, issued, you know, arrest warrant against some of the Hamas people. So it's not that, and also about the Israelis. But after that, to go after complete ethnic cleansing, to go after genocide, to go after killing 70,000 and more, to go after, you know, now, you know, the West Bank where 40% is occupied by settlers. Well, and then I hear the Western countries saying self-defense. You know, I used to teach international law, and that really was a personal insult to me. Then I wasted my life. If that is you who taught me what is international law, who taught me what is self-defense. You know, I spent years at NYU Law School doing that and feeling very comfortable because people around me, professors and others, we were on the same wavelengths. But now when I see this, not twist, this completely upending the system because you want to protect Israel for good, nobody questioned that Israel has the right to exist. Nobody questioned that. I mean, the whole stuff about Iran want to say this to that, you know. This is, I mean, you can see a lot of that like anti-Semitism or Nazism, but nobody questioned. But question Israel within the border of 1967. I was at the Security Council in 1967 when the resolution 242 was adopted. And Israel was supposed to live within peace and security border within 67, and another Palestinian should get their land. Since that time, with a lot of mistakes from Israel, of course, and the Arabs, I should say, creeping jurisdiction. Now the Israelis are saying there is nothing called Palestinian, there is nothing called a Palestinian state. It's all our biblical land since the year 3000. It's and the European and the American, of course. I mean, that's primarily the American who really have the clout to say. And America used to do that, in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Say, yes, we support you fully. We give you all the arm to have supremacy in the region, but you have to give what is due to the Palestinians, and that has disappeared. Mr. Trump is very happy to say that I've given Jerusalem to Israel. I'm very happy I give them the Golan Heights. I mean, these are things since 1947 saying Jerusalem should be corpus separatum, has a special status. Golan is part of Syria. But when you just walk around and smash every rule and every expectation, and then tell the people you have become terrorist, when people get angry, when people feel sense of injustice, what do you expect them to do? Go to have a glass of wine with you at, when people get berserk, and I see that when I used to travel or go to the Middle East or to Latin America or to Africa, the deep sense of injustice and inequality is very deep rooted, and that's not the future. That's not the future we should look at.
How do you view the current Arab role? The Arab states seem to be bystanders while things are being done on their behalf. Why do the Arabs look and feel so helpless regarding an issue that is central to their identity?
It's a question I ask myself every single day, and I write about it at least in my little X accounts or whatever, or in lecture. The Arabs used to be, there is a sense of identity, that there is something called Arab majority states, that they have common history, common language. We have 100 things more in common than the European Union. And we started with a system of national, regional security in 1947, the Arab defense system. It started, I think, with 6-7 countries, and it dissipated, and this is, I was asking myself this question this morning: why is the Arab world is the most part in the world when you have people within countries, between countries, fighting each other? I mean, at least like 10 out of the 20 countries or 22 countries in the Arab world, either in civil war or fighting each other or fighting with each other. And now I hear, for example, that the Gulf, want to have their own NATO pact. Well, the Gulf is 26 million, people, The Arab world is 400 million. If you're going to have a viable system of security, you have to have the whole Arab world. But they are, and you cannot just continue to say this is a conspiracy. This is, gone is this time. It's the problem is with us. The problem that we are not able to live together. The problem that we have, in most cases, governance that is not really the greatest. So people, there is poverty, there is a lack of education, there is lack of productivity. The Arab world is at a stage which I haven't seen before, and you are right. I mean, they're watching this war as if they are bystanders. I mean, they should have been the first one to tell Trump, and they said they did say that, but they have the clout. They should have said, there is no war here, and we're going to talk to the Iranians, or we're going to talk to the Turks, and we're going to talk to the Israelis. This is not it. But we have a dilemma in the Arab world, and I keep saying, unless, see the lesson coming from everywhere in the world, that people are getting together, in terms of security, in terms of complementarity, economic integration, whatever. That is the future. That's the future. But we're not. We are unfortunately, when I compare it, in Egypt, like in the 60s, during the Nasser time, during the rise of nationalism, Arab nationalism, and I hear now a lot of people saying we are not Arabs. There is nothing we have with each other. It's not good. Not only it's not good. I mean, there is a major issue that people need there to understand that we need to, and I think after this war, I think what I read at least, that they need to re-examine every assumption they had, from reliance on nuclear bases, American bases or foreign bases, through integration, through economic cooperation. I hope they would do that, because we are becoming marginalized, and I've been saying that we're becoming marginalized.
What could the Arab world do differently to stand up to this massive imbalance of power? Do you believe that Greater Israel is a real project which we could see in our lifetime?
I don't think that Greater Israel will happen. I mean, there is no. I can see it in my,
they are occupying southern Lebanon. They are occupying an area larger than Gaza in Syria.
Yeah.
They should walk into Damascus.
I see that, David, but whether that would lead to a revolt within this countries, that's what I'm worried about. I mean, people were surprised when we have the Arab Spring, and anybody who was surprised was stupid, because anybody who lived there in this area would have realized people reach a point when there is no possibility for peaceful change other than revolt. And I think if we continue with this way, if we continue in what's happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Iran, it will be. I hope it wouldn't happen, because that would be an explosion of the entire region, and God knows how this explosion in entire region would.
So you think the Arab Spring isn't dead?
No, it's not dead at all.
And you think the embers are burning underneath our feet?
It's not dead at all. I mean, what did the Arab Spring ask for? Equity, economic development, political freedom. I mean, these are things which are still absent in most Arab countries. So no, it's not. It's like the Spring of Nations in Europe. It took them 25 years until they got rid of feudalism and others. So things sometimes in history is slow, but the root causes are there. People need, and as you rightly mentioned, when people now see that their territories, their land is being taken over from them, when they see they're being treated like dirt, they're being shot at, and extrajudicially with pride, people are not. I mean, if you talk about Iran, for example, Iran, when you talk about regime change, Iran is 60% Persian. There's 40% minorities there. Could you see how, if the Iran will disintegrate, how that will impact, and Iran is 90 million, how that will impact in the Gulf, in impact of the entire region, how many, as you call, so-called terrorism groups will come back. Obama, I still remember when after the Iraq war, and of course the result of Iraq was ISIS, and he said we need to learn when we shoot to aim. At least he was honest to say that, but it was a little bit late, because then we got ISIS and we got all that. So politicians need to have vision. Politicians need to understand, where are we heading? The world, in terms particularly of technology, and is developing so fast, and We have to come to grips with the climate. We have to come to grips with the AI. We have to come to grips with the arms race. We have to come to grip with the inequality, the horrible inequality, the 1%, the 1% of 1% who own half the world. Unless we do that, I don't want to say, I mean, of course, I don't want to say we're doomed, because but we are going through a very, very rough sea.
Who is actually leading the Arab world now? Is it Saudi Arabia? Is it Egypt? Who is there to guide the Arab world?
The Arab world is, unfortunately, is disintegrating. I mean, if you look at North Africa, you know, there is a big fight between Morocco and Algeria. In Tunisia, there is a system, God knows, in which, again, the country is completely divided. There is now feeling that the Gulf is in a class of its own, so they don't need Egypt. You know, there is even some jealousy, as we see it, between some of the Gulf countries' leaders, and Egypt is 1/4 of the Arab world. You know, Egypt is historically was the soft power, basically a soft power, and the hard power, you know, has to be part of course, an important part to lead the Arab world. With Saudi Arabia is also, you know, a large country, but then there used to be Iraq, there used to be Syria, there are Algeria. There's 4 or 5 countries who. Not a single person. We do not want a single person to lead, and cannot be a single person, but you have a consortium of the larger countries supported by their people, empowering their people, you know, telling the people they have a future, telling the people we will improve your standard of life, you will be able to express your views. You know, when you see, as you mentioned, Gaza, you know, when everywhere in the world people were out in the street expressing their views and demonstration. And in the Arab world, you could not get out. That is, it just shows you, and you can't run a country without the support of your people. I mean, it's the people who should lead, and that is not yet happening in the Arab world.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David, for having me.
That was a great privilege to hear that. That was a marvellous interview. Thank you very much.
Thanks.